We want to make it where you don't have to be a robotics expert to package snack foods. We're starting to put IP cameras so we can have a visual of what's going on, because a lot of times with robotics, those non-intuitive issues that are happening that I mentioned, it's either try to explain to me, Mr. Operator, what's going on, or send me, with cell phones, you can send a video, but even then it just takes more time than I can remote in and see what's going on and troubleshoot real time. We have customers in the candy industry, and you can imagine they'll order new equipment just to handle the Halloween rush. We were recently asked by one of our larger customers that they have several lines of our systems of ours, and they said, well, we want to run 50% faster. Can you do it?
Yeah.
Not only can you do it, but
we want to do
when you will be able to deliver this.
Yeah. These are simple challenges, right? Because if I were to use a driving analogy, I want to go fast, so it helps to have a straight road to go fast.
Hello everybody, and welcome once again to the Practitioners Unplugged podcast, where we dive into real-world stories and strategies of manufacturing digital transformation. Join us as we hear from thought leaders and innovators who are driving change and shaping the future of Industry 4.0. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just curious about the future of manufacturing, this podcast is for you. Today, once again, we're coming to you live from the Automate show here in Detroit, and joining us today is Jason Head, who is the Controls Development Engineer at Fallas Automation. Jason, thanks again for taking the time to join us. Do you want to give the audience a little bit of a synopsis about your job, your role, what you do, what Fallas does, and where it kind of plays into the digital transformation theme?
Sure. Fallas Automation is we're an OEM. We make secondary packaging equipment we call case packers. We sell auxiliary equipment. We make and sell auxiliary equipment that goes along with that: case sealers, case erectors, product conditioners, combiners, pattern formers, things like that. My role, so for the past, I've been there 11 years. I've done machine startups, I've done machine installations, remote support, on-site support, training of our new controls technicians. My current role is, we've started an R&D department, so now I'm going to be spending a lot more time, researching what are the latest trends in technology, what's out there, what can we utilize to make our machines more efficient for secondary packaging.
So efficiencies are the big things. Being an OEM, we've had these conversations with some of the larger, let's call it more the end user type, and there's this thirst for data now, and the right data to control systems, to do enterprise visualization, to balance my lines. And from an OEM standpoint, what are you seeing from your end users? Are they starting to drive specifications? Are they requesting more and more data? Like, what does that landscape look like? How's it changed over the last couple of years with this transformational effort the companies are going through?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing an uptick in requests for different data sets, and not only we want these pieces of data, but they're asking for like specific data structures. It seems like each big corporation kind of has their own customized standard that we have to tailor our equipment to deliver that data in the way that they're asking for it.
Now, how's that impacting like your ability to quickly deploy machines?
It definitely kind of throws a wrench in the works. It takes a lot of time to dive in and dig through their standard to make sure we're doing exactly what they're asking for. It's not all, it's definitely not the same pieces of information that our different customers are asking for. So there's a lot of custom, tedious work that definitely holds up getting machines out quickly and in a sort of cookie cutter, reliable sort of way.
Yeah, so are you getting more pressure to put more sensors for analytics? Are you guys exploring any sensors for analytics within your machines? Like, what does that machine of the future look like based on what you're hearing?
Gotcha, yeah, so we're definitely getting more requests. It's not as much of a demand like it is with the data yet. But we do want to incorporate, for example, sensors to detect component failures, so that our customers can do predictive maintenance instead of scheduled downtime, as opposed to run it till it breaks and then figure out how to fix it and get the line back up and running and fit it into the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is converting, unplanned downtime into planned downtime.
Yeah.
So yeah, we see a lot of that in the industry as well. There's some modeling that comes in. Now, are you seeing like digital transformation opening up any other revenue models for you? Remote monitoring, continuous improvement, flexibility? Like, what kind of demands are you seeing from the customers as far as additional equipment capabilities that before, something's designed, 20, 30-year life. Now consumer demands are changing. How do we become more flexible? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we're definitely trying to build more flexible machines that do, more form factors of product, cases. There's new case designs that come out. Not all the time, but definitely seen some newer ones here in the last couple of years. We're not just trying to make those machines more flexible on that end.
I think one of the things that we talked about earlier was like workforce empowerment, right, at the operator level. Can you give me like an example of what you're doing on that? Because the flexibility, I guess, really comes down from that operator entry point, right? Because everybody has turnover, they have new people working on the machine all the time. I think we had a similar conversation around that. Can you give me some examples of that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That workforce seems to be changing. It's very transient, depending on location. Our customers have harder times getting consistent people that have whatever level of experience to operate this kind of machinery. Our goal is to make that as simple and seamless as possible, not just so that our customers have a uniform and positive experience. So it's easy to operate. You don't have to know all these like special tricks to make the machine work. But also, with the changing workforce and just different levels of expertise coming in, we want to make it where you don't have to be a robotics expert to package, snack foods.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Trey.
No, how would you say you've been there for a long time, right?
Yep, 11 years.
A decade, wow, there's a lot of trends in the food and bev industry. And we've gone through a pandemic and all the challenges that came with it. So in terms of the operators that we need to recruit to run the machines, what changes have you seen? Is that pretty much the same 10 years ago, or?
At least from my position, I haven't seen a lot of change in the operator because there wasn't ever really a standard operator. It just depends on what part of the country you're in, whether you're in the city or out in kind of the middle of nowhere, where it's easy to build big facilities that are new.
And then packaging is also more of a low-touch, highly automated environment, right?
Right.
You have more of an engineer standing by to ensure the uptime, I would imagine.
It can be.
Yeah.
A lot of times maintenance personnel have robotics training for troubleshooting, and also just so you have an intuition about what might be going wrong.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes it's not intuitive at all.
Yeah.
So what other trends are you seeing? What's being pushed? Being in this R&D position, what have you investigated so far as technology you're playing with?
So one thing, and to answer a little bit more of your earlier question, one thing that we're seeing is, along with this kind of transient, turbulent skill level at the operator position, we're investigating and getting requests for remote help.
Okay.
So there's more. It almost seems like there's less responsibility that customers want to take on for troubleshooting, and they more push. You have a problem with this, call this number. Fallas made the equipment. Get their help. Let's get this going. So I'm investigating, some remote technologies just to help us to get in and be able to facilitate more over the phone. We're starting to put IP cameras so we can have a visual of what's going on, because a lot of times with robotics, those non-intuitive issues that are happening that I mentioned, it's either try to explain to me, Mr. Operator, what's going on, or send me, with cell phones you can send a video, but even then it just takes more time than I can remote in and see what's going on and troubleshoot real time.
Okay, so you're leveraging both the visual data and then the physical data that's coming through to figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, have you investigated any type of applications of machine learning, AI vision, like any of that type of enhancements to those machines?
We have. That's a good point. We have had requests for more product verification, validation. So we've done some things for customers where they've requested that we, barcode scanners.
Yeah.
They have a barcode printed on their cases, and then we'll scan that to make sure that the correct case was loaded for that product or that SKU that's being run through the line at that time. We've also done some like product inspection. We use vacuum in a lot of our pick and place robots, and you can't pick and place plastic tubs with lids if the lids aren't seated correctly. So we've done some, lid inspection, and since we have cameras, they asked us to verify some, graphic things that are, there's no defects, it's the correct, graphic that's supposed to be on that product and things like that.
So that in-process quality control and inspection is another enhancement that you're getting pushed on to do that.
Yeah, since we kind of, we've become this one-stop shop for everything between the primary packaging. Most of the time it's a bagger, and we'll be right after the bagging equipment and right before palletizing equipment, or maybe it's hand palletized. So since we have all the conveyors and everything else, we're the central control system for that end of line system. We get a lot of those kind of asks quite a bit.
So it seems like you're providing like modular solutions within a giant factory. How are you handling the coordination between the other value streams that are feeding into you, or is there any request for some harmony between you and maybe another vendor that might pick up a different piece of the process?
Thankfully, so far, it's mostly, are you running? Sure, okay, I can run then, or vice versa.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot going on between our equipment and other people's equipment, except to say, here's a permissive, you can run, or I'm down, you should probably, run for 20 seconds and pause. We are having to pull in some of the standalone equipment that's within, the secondary section or our equipment, where we are getting asked to kind of integrate and pull some data and just give some more information from, say, our case packer HMI, because it is kind of a central point in that section of the line.
So when you deploy equipment, how often is it tied to, let's say, a new product launch versus just, let's say, replacement capacity?
You mean like, so they're adding a new product, and
or so in food and bev, packaging, there's new types of packaging introductions, new products. It's constantly changing, right?
Yes.
So I would imagine that also impacts how you support customers, and there's usually some kind of a launch window that you got to hit, right?
Sure.
In having the equipment, tested, ready to go.
For sure. I mean, we have customers in the candy industry, and you can imagine they'll order new equipment just to handle the Halloween rush at the retail stores.
Yeah.
So there is that.
And so if we take that example, what's the size of that window between saying, all right, we're going to do this, to production? What does that look like?
It's a good question. I guess if we can, we're usually booked out, up to a year.
Oh, wow.
So if we're able to get, those are typically larger orders. They're not just ones that we can squeeze in the schedule. They're more complicated machinery, especially with, candy and that sort of thing. There are all sorts of form factors and sizes with the primary packaging. So as long as we can get it on the books, in time, then we have a good deal. Otherwise, I think in some cases they've had to look for other vendors to meet those needs.
So what is that lead time? So let's say if I'm one of the customers and I'm launching a product and you're already booked out for a full year, that means 2 years ahead I've thought about this, the product configuration, all this stuff, right?
If we're booked out about a year, I would probably say, once we're able to start on your machine, we've been able to streamline some things through ordering, frames and batches and different things like that. So it's, maybe 3 or 4 months. It could be less.
So it seems like a fast-moving, fast-changing business.
I was going to mention, we're actually working on, we've developed 2 new machines, and now there's another one coming, because the name of the game now is not just flexibility and efficiency, but also speed.
Just the velocity of product moving.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were recently asked by one of our larger customers, that they have several lines of ours, systems of ours. And they said, well, we want to run 50% faster. Can you do it?
Yeah.
Not only can you do it, but
we want
tell us when you will be able to deliver this by.
Yeah.
And it's challenging, but we figured out how we were going to tackle it, and we released it. And unfortunately, you spend a lot of time in the field kind of tuning in the process, because anything to do with speed, that's hard for us to manually do by hand to test in our facility, because we're putting everything on by hand. We don't have the baggers, we don't have the volume or the throughput that they have in plant.
Your test bed is the customer location.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we do as much as we can before, but there's only so much.
Yeah. I mean, 50%. That's a big ask, right?
It definitely was.
But I guess is that normal range, or?
That's probably the biggest that I've ever seen. It's kind of extreme.
Yeah.
Now, are there any advancements in technology that helped you achieve that? Like, again, 50% is a big ask. Are they basing it off of something that was designed 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And then, what's really changed that's allowing you to hit that?
I would say more. It was more programming and methodology, end of arm or the end effector, how we were doing that instead of, say like being able to pick up a single product for every pick and place motion. There was, multiple picks before the place.
Okay.
So not necessarily any technology. It was more a, having to tackle, not just, being able to tackle, but having something that necessitated the investment in time and development and the code, the software, developing a head that's light enough that can also do this, sort of multiple pick thing.
So an ask like that, I would imagine it's going back and forth with the customer, because from an economic perspective, 50% improvement in speed means 50% more capacity for me, right?
Right.
So as from a business point of view, I'm like, hey, tell me when to stop. I'm going to ask as much as possible. So how does that conversation go with the customer saying, oh, okay, maybe not 50, but I think, with the current state of the technology, we might be able to bump it up. Is it like a lot of back and forth, or they just say, hey, go off and this is our ask and come back to us? How does that work?
There's definitely a back and forth. Fortunately, we have a good relationship with this customer. We've worked with them for a long time. They have a lot of our equipment. So it's, okay, yes, we'll try. We kind of heard from them. They were having to ask not just, the case packing equipment manufacturer, which is us, to increase by 50%, but also the baggers and everything upstream of that.
Upstream and downstream has to also go as fast.
So it was a pretty big effort on their part to try to get, what can you guys do? We want to do this. And if we couldn't, we'd say, well, currently we can do 40% or 30%. Like, well, can you do more? Is there anything, like what can we get you to? Well, thankfully, we didn't have to do it too much. We were able to kind of hit that. It took, several months of, development and planning for that.
Correct. I mean, these aren't simple challenges, right? Because it's, if I were to use a driving analogy, I want to go fast. So it helps to have a straight road to go fast. But, if you're going to be flexible, there's also these, curves that you have to navigate. And, again, speed and flexibility can be sort of opposing requirements, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Thankfully, this particular style of case packer, it does, mainly one type of thing pretty well. So there wasn't a huge, it's not the case packer type that meets that extreme flexibility demand from the market.
Let's switch gears now, because you're also a manufacturer generally, right? Making engineered to order type of equipment. Is there anything that you're embracing more on the, let's call it the manufacturing side, to help speed out your time to market and your deployment of machines? Like, are you leveraging any data? Like, what's transpiring on the manufacturing side to help meet the demand a little more?
Yeah, so I'm less familiar with what data we might be working on. That might be more in like sales and purchasing and that sort of thing. But we're definitely trying to start up machines faster and in a more reliable way. So we're starting to explore technologies that use more, connectors that are, outside of the cabinet that you can, like, for example, daisy chain together. And then there's taps for things like, safety door switches, safety e-stops, instead of running everything back and wiring manually by hand into the cabinet, which, takes more time, but there's also more room for error. It's harder to troubleshoot and things like that. So, we're starting to look at, these devices cost more, but the reliability aspect and, the savings in troubleshooting and labor seem to be pretty advantageous for us.
Now, how about the guys that are actually moving the wires, right? Is there any tools? Are you starting to see a generational shift there where people, instead of looking at static schematics, want stuff in the palm of their hand? Is there more like workforce empowerment that you guys are deploying to help them in, building and assembling these machines?
We are looking at deploying a few things. It's more in the exploratory phase, but things like, large screen TVs with, you can pull up schematics there and reference them like that versus, a floating set of paper schematics that could get lost. We haven't done any, we're trying different things, but we haven't landed anywhere in particular.
More from the, again, one of the industries I support is food and bev, and really that velocity of the factory is really determined by the pack line. Because you can, in that make pack operation, you can make bulk and keep it, you can keep inventory, but really what goes out the door is determined by, the pack line is the constraint, isn't it? Most of the time.
Yeah.
So in addition to, the speed, are there any other requirements that you see from customers that are indicators of, let's say, broader market trends?
Yeah, I mean, there's, we've discussed, sort of the data piece of it, where they're doing more analytics on not just our equipment, uptime, downtime, why were we down, why were you running but idle, is it product flow problems, where's the bottleneck keeping this from running what we know that it can and getting, X amount of product out the door. So there's the data analyzation piece. There's the, increased uptime from doing the sort of validation on the product. If you get fewer mispicks and messes that could shut the machine down and cause, the need for cleaning, if you make sure the lids are seated properly, you don't drop things everywhere, or just things like that.
So how often is the collaboration and cadence between your team and the customer team? Is that like if you take your largest customer as an example, how often are you guys talking?
I see it more when we're actively working on a project, when there's something that's like built to a certain point and I see it on the floor.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be as frequent, but it is, a weekly basis when we're on an active project.
Yeah.
It's more often when we're doing something we haven't done before, like a 50% speed increase.
Got it.
It's, they want more status. We typically want more input, like what are the constraints? Give us some more details about how it has to run, 50% faster. Does it need to do this also? Yeah. Sort of thing.
So it's mostly in the design and build phase that you have tight collaboration, and then operate and maintain, I guess it depends on the piece of equipment, I would imagine.
Right, so we get calls quite a bit. Oh. We have a service team. A lot of times they get overwhelmed, the growing business, the growing number of machines we're putting out the door. We don't have enough people to keep up with the demand for, over the phone service, on-site service, as well as like the preventive maintenance that they, can ask us to do from time to time.
So it's a good problem to have. The growth problem is always a good one.
Right.
To me, that opens up the avenue for additional service and revenue streams for your business. So I guess before the next train goes by, right, we can start to get towards wrap up. But what do you envision that machine of the future look like? How do you see technology evolving, and what does the OEM of the future look like? what additional things are you going to do? How are you going to meet this market demand by doing more maybe models as a service to help the reliability aspect of your machines to customers and fit this? Like, what does that look like? And I'll give you a moment to collect your thoughts.
Rumination time.
Yeah. Are you looking at training models? There's my train pun. I was waiting to get one in for this one, but I haven't used yet.
So, our customers already want data. We'd love to collect some of that data ourselves and analyze, like, what are the pain points? Not like, what are the problems that are caused by, opportunities for improvement in our equipment, not just like, a lack of knowledge on the operator's part. Although, lack of knowledge, something that's hard for an operator to use, we also want to improve. So we want to aggregate that data and analyze it as well. We want to improve our interface system so that it's not cumbersome to get through and find what you need. It's easy to, I want the machine to do this. I can easily push a button or increase this value, and it's clear and obvious what I need to do to get the result that I want. We also want more sensors, not just for the predictive maintenance to help our customers out, but we want to see more of what's going on. If we can program it to react better in certain situations and prevent downtime or damaged product, we want to do that.
It seems like a function of balancing quality, throughput, and reliability, right? So if I go faster, I might push past the design constraints. So modeling all that data to enhance those three features and understand the risk if you go outside of the design capacity speed, what's that going to do on the back end? I think providing that to customers to understand that if you push these thresholds, your maintenance cost is going to go up. Or if you stay at this, you can run steadier for a long period of time without unplanned downtime. So kind of forecasting those type of demand constraints and understanding the decision is a pretty cool place to be.
Yeah, I would agree.
Awesome.
And if you look at a pack line, all elements of OEE plus utilities comes into play, right?
Yeah.
And you can pretty much pick up all the relevant data for that OEE and utilities equation just through sensors, right?
Yeah.
So how do you go about, the discussion around sensors, is that mostly an engineering discussion, or is it mostly with customers? When they look at the measurement, the performance of the system, how does that conversation go?
It's more of a, Fallas Automation having time to develop and present a solution, and also convey the added benefit to the customer so that there's actually buy-in.
Well, Jason, this has been a great conversation so far. Is there anything else you want to leave the community with? Is there any, we talked to a lot of end users, right? So is there any ask for an end user that would kind of help designing that machine in the future, or what do you see? What would you like to leave the community with?
I would say, I myself as an engineer, a lot of times I like to do everything myself. I like to figure it out. I like to be the one to do it. There's a lot of resources out there. Vendors can be a great resource with, their engineers, and they see market trends from a lot of different angles. So you can get a lot of, data and insight about where the market's going, how to build a better machine. What are the demands from customers that you don't necessarily interface with because they haven't, purchased your equipment yet. So definitely don't be an island.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? We heard about that a lot is collaborate in a team, leverage one another, vendors included, right? They say a lot of things that you don't, and it seems like in this digital transformation space, if you just stay in your paradigm, you're destined to maintain the status quo at best or fall behind.
Yep.
Awesome. Also, just the sheer volume of information you got to keep up with. As an engineer, I would imagine you'd like to solve every problem yourself, but there's just no way that you can do that, by yourself.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, Jason, where can people learn about Fallas Automation?
So our website, fallasautomation.com. We've, somewhat recently in the past couple of years, spruced it up and hired professional photographers and such. We've got, pretty spiffy videos of our equipment running, and what our offerings are and what the applications, the main applications are for those pieces of equipment.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
That was my favorite part of going to your website, watching those videos.
Yeah, I know. I love watching robots work. It's pretty neat, which is why the backdrop here is so great.
Drone videos.
Yeah.
Always fun.
But thank you again for taking the time to speak with us, and thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode of the Practitioners Unplugged. We hope you found these stories and conversations as insightful and inspiring as we did. Like, subscribe, and please leave feedback on where do you want to see the podcast go from here. And again, thanks again for tuning in.